this web development video lesson, we will demonstrate how to put animated layers underneath your rich HTML content on any of your web pages. Let's first take a look at the finished product of what you'll be able to create after viewing this lesson. I'll preview it in Chrome, and I checked in all the major browsers and it works just fine. What we have is rich HTML content sitting nicely on top of a nice animated background, as opposed to the normal CSS background still images that you can place underneath your content. So what you can do is replace the still background for a nice animated one using this simple method that I've developed. You can also use it for the whole background of your web page. If you wanted your whole background to have animated graphics, you can easily do that. Now, it's very important to note that you can use Flash or you can use JavaScript based animations in your animated layer. Either one you choose is entirely up to you. Another important thing I want to point out is that HTML and Flash can communicate seamlessly using the external interface class of ActionScript 3.0, which enables two-way Flash to JavaScript communication, so that if you wanted to make HTML elements control or instruct the animated Flash layer, that sort of thing is also possible using ActionScript 3 to JavaScript communication. Okay, let's get this lesson underway. Now, before I explain this animated box div I have here, I have an identifier of AnimaBox. That's short for animated box or animated container. You can see that div is all wrapped up right here, and that's the only thing I have in the body tag, just to keep the lesson nice and simple. And you know how to position your divs. So I'm going to let people know that if you're new to web design, this might overwhelm you just a little bit. But if you're somebody that worked with CSS a little bit and HTML, you'll feel right at home. It's not a big deal. So first, let's closely inspect these HTML elements that we have on the page, these three divs. So I have a main div that really it wraps all of the things that are within the animated box. So we have a div called AnimaBox, and that's the identifier right here for it. Then we have another div right here with an ID of bottom layer, and then we have another div right here with an ID of top layer. It's pretty simple. And inside I have the content all collapsed up. But there's content in both of those boxes, and this one is the Flash content, which, like I said, you can have JavaScript animated content within the HTML5 canvas tag if you like. Okay, so we have the main div that's simply holding these two divs. Now all we have to do is explain the CSS to you. Now the first little bit of CSS is for the animated box container. So we give that a background color of black, a width of 550, and a height of 200. Now the reason why I have those dimensions set because my Flash animation has a size of 550 by 200. So I just wanted to make my Flash animation the size that I needed for my box. So if this was a web page background, a whole big giant web page background, I would probably make this 1600 wide, or maybe even 2400 pixels wide. But you have to be careful. A lot of people don't have really high-end computers, and their graphics card won't be able to handle the processing of all the animations. So keep it nice and light and lean. Be elegant and subtle. And another very important aspect, if you're going to use a Flash animation, is in your Publish settings in Flash. You want to make sure in your HTML tab of your Publish settings that you have this set to window mode transparent. Okay? So that's a pretty important aspect of the whole thing. But don't worry, your HTML is going to be on top of these animations, but it's still important to set your background to transparent for your Flash graphics. Okay, so that explains to you why I have a width of 550 and 200 set on my animated box, and a background of black. That background of black is what supplies the black background to the imagery, because the Flash background is transparent. Now, the bottom layer box has a position of absolute, and this one, the top layer box, the div, also has a position of absolute, and that way they can both rest right on top of each other. And you just give the element that you want to be on the bottom layer a z-index of 1, or you can give it a z-index of 1000, but you just make sure that this z-index for the top layer is a higher value than this one. So I just made mine 1 for the bottom layer and z-index of 2 for the top layer, and they both have a absolute position set. Now the bottom layer, you really don't even need this width and height setting if you're using Flash, because the Flash container is only going to be 550 by 200. It won't be any larger than that. But I just put the width and height in there too to show you what's going on. This is the bottom layer, which holds the flash animation. Now let's move on to the top layer. The top layer has a padding set as well inside of it. And that's so all of my content, if we go and look at it in the browser, my content's not all squeezed up against the side of the box. It's got some room to breathe. And then I just set a color for my text with a nice light blue that matched the animation a little bit. And then I set the width to 520 and the height to 170. And you'll notice that the widths are not the same as these guys because I have to subtract 30 pixels from the width and height since I set this padding of 15. If you didn't set the width and height to subtract the padding, then your content will extend out of the box or hit the sides, and you don't want that. So you just have to compensate for the padding by subtracting the number of the padding times 2 from the width and the height, because it's going to pad on all sides, left, right, top, and bottom. So you want to take 15 times 2 and subtract it from these. And that's it, my friends. I told you it was very simple, right? Let me wrap this back up. So that's the style. That's all the style that I have in play. That's all the CSS. And you saw all of the HTML. Right here I just have my object tag. And I got that from this file that Flash renders out. You guys know that Flash renders out a file after you make an animation or whatever. It renders out a file. You can just go into that HTML file it renders and grab the object tags. And it'll also have the embed tag right here within it. Okay, let me collapse that back. So you can see we have a simple div that holds everything, and you can position that div anywhere on your web page. And then inside of it are the important divs that hold the bottom and top layer, which bottom layer is your animation, your animated background. Top layer is your rich HTML content, which you can see right there. Okay, that's everything, guys. And I'll have all of this code available at developphp.com, and I'll put a link for it in the description of this video, just in case you couldn't read it in the video or type it out and you want to just grab my code and just replicate the application for yourself. You'll like it. It's pretty cool. And like I said, you can use JavaScript animations with the HTML5 canvas tag, or you can choose to use Flash, whichever is your forte, whichever is your thing. To have a more web standardized animation, it's JavaScript, but JavaScript is not so easy yet. I don't think it's going to be so easy to make really cool, smooth JavaScript animations. Like anything that we can envision in our mind, we can just put down to animation. I don't think JavaScript's going to be that easy for us until they make Adobe Edge a little bit better and make it like an authoring tool like Flash is, to where you can easily make JavaScript-based animations. So, you know, you can take your pick, whichever you want. I'm not saying you have to use Flash like I did here. Use JavaScript if that's your thing, buddy. Alright, now let's just take a look, and I'm going to prove on video that it works in Safari. Let's bring that over here. So that's it running in Safari, and then we have it in Internet Explorer, and Internet Explorer is going to ask you to allow the block content if this is on your local machine. On the web, it won't ask that. It'll just run nice and smooth for all you users in Internet Explorer. And then we can file preview it in Firefox. And you already saw it in Chrome, so I won't do that one again. It looks smooth in all of them. And actually, my video frame rate will probably chop up that animation and mangle it a little bit. I'm telling you, it looks really, really slick and smooth. Buttery. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next lesson.